These set of notes will do a code review for the topics of 2.4, Simple Flow of Control, Making Decisions, and 2.5 on Program Style and Following Good Standard Practices. I've loaded the copies.cpp program into code blocks. We will use this as our coding example to review the topics from Chapter 2.4 and 2.5. A program written following standard practices with attention to style is easier to read, correct, and make changes to. We will get some practice with adding features to programs we've written this semester. And this is an important consideration because in the real world, the lifetime of a program could be years in terms of its maintenance phase. Many programmers will have to make many changes to the code over the years, and the style of writing the software greatly impacts the ease with which the changes can be made. The first thing we're going to consider is indentation. I'm going to scroll down, and we notice here that the main function has a starting curly brace on line 17 and a closing curly brace on line 45. All of the lines of code that belong to the main function are indented within those curly braces. This makes it easier to read as a unit of code on the page. The other thing to notice is that we are lining up the curly braces in the same column. The opening curly brace on line 17 starts in the first column, right under the declaration for function main, and the closing curly brace is also in the first column. On line 30, we see an if statement. The if statement has two instructions associated with it, and they are included inside curly braces, and again, notice we indent them the same distance so that it's obvious those two lines of code are part of the if block. The else block also has a set of curly braces using the same level of indentation for the charge for copies statement. Now, although we didn't have to have curly braces for the else path, since there's only one line of code, it is good standard practice to put the curly braces in for each possible block of code. That way, if later we need to add code, we won't have to worry about or make the mistake of not having the necessary curly braces. Scrolling back up to the top, recall at the top of your programs you have a set of required comments and documentation for your program that includes the description, the programmer, and the date. The style of commenting here is to use a / followed by a star to start the multi-line comment, and a star followed by a / to end the multi-line comment. When you comment this way, everything in between will be ignored by the compiler. This information is for another programmer or human to read. It's not for the computer to execute. Scrolling down, we see on line 17, 20, and 26 the two / comment style. This is called an inline comment and is only good to the end of the line. I cannot continue on the next line for an inline comment, and if I try, C++ compiler will not understand that it's meant to be a comment. Just to demonstrate this, I can't start the comment on line 17 and continue it on line 18 with the two /. I would need to have another set of / on each line that is meant to be a comment. I'm going to take that back out. We always want to offset the input, process, and output sections of our code, and we do that with the inline comments. You can also separate them with white space to make it easier to find. So there's the input and the process, and down below we see the output section. Some other tips regarding standard practice and style. It's important that we use meaningful variable names. I should be able to read through this program and have a good sense of what's going on based on the names of the variables. Another really important tip is, when appropriate, include constants in your program. Line 15 is a constant named discount quantity, and it's set to the value 100. Whenever we declare constants in C++, we must initialize them at the point that we declare them. Their value can never change once they've been pretty much set in stone here as a constant, which means then that we cannot try to change the value of discount quantity. If we try to do so, the C++ compiler will complain, and I'll demonstrate that. So on line 19, let's try to change the quantity of discount quantity by reading it in from the keyboard. Let's try to compile this. We're getting an error message for line 19 where we attempt to read in a new value for the discount quantity. Let's try one more. Let's try to set the discount quantity with an assignment statement. Maybe we're having a special, so the discount quantity amount will be 75. Again, let's try to compile this. We see error message on line 19, assignment of read-only variable discount quantity. Once we declare something to be a constant, it is not a variable any longer. It is a named value for the rest of the program. The other thing to notice here is that this has been declared before we even get to main, and this is good standard practice as well. Since that discount quantity cannot be changed in the program, it makes good sense to make it prominent at the top of the file before main. This way, all the parts of the program file will be able to see and use discount quantity. Also notice that we capitalize it. So when we're reading through the program, we would recognize that it's a constant and we should not try to change it. So these are just some programming style tips that make your program easier to read and manage, and you should adopt these as your style as well. Now let's examine the if-else statement. When we want to make decisions in a program or selections from different options, we use if-else in C++. The statement inside the if must be able to be evaluated into a yes or no decision, or true or false decision. Here we're checking, is the copy count greater than discount quantity? Now the copy count was typed in by the user, and we're comparing it to that constant 100. Notice how discount quantity is used over and over again in this program. If for some reason the manager decides to have a special and change the discount quantity amount, we would have to come in here and only change one thing in the program. Right here at the top, I could change this to 75, and now every line of code dependent on that quantity is automatically updated. When you are examining your problem descriptions, you should be looking for these special values and remembering to make them constants. What to look for? Values that don't change, or a value that may change and have an effect on the program. But if you are given a value at the program description, it likely should be implemented as a constant. Back to our simple if statement. So we're checking for truthiness here. If the copy count the user entered was greater than discount quantity, so the discount charge is set to the copy count minus 100 times 3 cents. Now we knew that copy count was greater than 100, so we can calculate the charge for copies to be 5 times our discount quantity, and then add to that the charges for the discount charge. The else path is taken if the truth check here fails. So if copy count is not greater than our discount quantity, then we follow the else path, and the charge for copies is just 5 cents times the copy count. The output section will display the charge for the copies and let them know the discount charge. Now notice the output section is not part of the decision. We are going to be providing this information regardless. So this does not belong inside the decision structure. We need to recompile the program and build it and then run it. Let's say we need 105 copies. It tells us the total will be $5.15 and our discounted amount was 15 cents for the 5 copies above 100. $5 for the first 100 copies, 15 cents for the 5 copies greater than 100. Happy C++ coding!